be made to private persons who shall captivate or kill any of the Indian enemy, which is made to soldiers on the frontiers of the province. From documented history of Maine, Spencer Phipps was then lieutenant governor of the province of Massachusetts Bay and was the acting governor at that time. With their bodies peeled of their red skins in that scalp wrapped up. Now, hopefully you understand why we, your Native American brothers and sisters, are so determined to have the racist term Redskins used in the name of the Washington football team removed forever. There are many members of the human family other than American Indians that understand the racial connotations and history of this nasty, distasteful reference towards my people are more than just desirous of changing the name of the Washington Redskins football team forever, never to be dug up again and used again by any organizations, sports organizations, corporations, or anywhere else. Changing the name is important. However, changing the name is just the tip of the massive iceberg that lurks so deep beneath the sea of hate, inequality, and hopelessness. It's all of the racist history that was set into motion by the policies of the early colonists, furthered by the U.S. government, as well as the present policies that are still in motion and continue to hurt and abuse Indian people. It continues today. The suffering continues today. The racist policies are still in force, and the abuse through congressional legislation has only fostered poverty as the only force and form of survival for most American Indian people in the land of plenty, where so many suffer from homelessness, hunger, poor health, and a life expectancy of only 50 years of age on American Indian reservation prison camps. And the colonial genocidal practices waged against the American Indian continues today. The same old crap. I'm J. Winter Nightwolf, originator and host of American Indians Truths, the most dangerous show on radio, WPFW 89.3 FM Washington. And I'll be back to introduce to you shortly my guests for this edition of the American Indians Truths. I have two guests, one that will be on with us in the beginning of the show and another that will be on with us midway till the end. Don't go away. Welcome back to the American Indians Truths. I'm J. Winter Nightwolf, and this is 89.3 FM Washington, WPFW. My first guest for the next 15 or 20 minutes is my brother from all the way out in California. His name is Robert Upham, also known as the Harlem Indian. Is a mixed-blood American Indian from many different tribes, including the Blackfeet, Lakota, Assiniboine, Dakota, Salish, and the list goes on. He grew up on the Fort Belknap Indian Reservation near the town of Harlem, Montana. In 1994, upon the advice of his uncle, Floyd Red Crow Westerman, Robert walked across the United States with Dennis Banks, co-founder of the American Indian Movement. The walk was called the Walk for Justice, and the purpose was to raise awareness of Leonard Peltier's imprisonment and the various issues across Indian country. He is an artist in the tradition of the winter count. His mediums are acrylic, pen, pencil, and video. And for the last 9 years, he has used video to educate the public on the American Indians' cause. He is presently the director of the Blue Pony Youth Program. His major project at this time is a movie called The Harlem Indian Project, Licensed to be Indian. And at this time, I'd like to welcome my brother to the airways of WPFW and the most dangerous show on radio. Hey, Rob. How you doing? Speak right into your phone. We can hardly hear you.
Okay. I want to, first of all, I'd like to thank you, give you a pedamia, and tell you that I don't represent all natives. I just represent my own perspective. That's why I came up with the name Harlem Indian. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
All right. The reason why I came up with the name Harlem Indian is because I was raised on a reservation where they put two enemy tribes there, the Gros Ventre, which is the Yatnanin, and the Assiniboines, which are Nakotas. We were warring factions back in the day, dueled for competing lands, and they put us on the reservation just so we could not get things done, you know?
Absolutely. Now, I want to read something that you put on Facebook that caught my eye.
Sure.
Excuse me. And Rob writes, the name Redskin was spoken by those with white skin is not acceptable as something that honors us. As for the other names, here is a sentiment I would like to share. And this is for the schools that use certain names such as Indians as mascots. If you truly wish to honor us, then teach an entire year of our history in the schools. I would consider your statements of honoring us if such an act would happen. But do I think you are truly honoring me or my ancestors? I don't think so. Because you won't take the word of a living person about how they feel. And I feel you, the European American Caucasian, are underprivileged. Underprivileged because you haven't had the fortune to learn the true history of this country. Your history is in the schools. In schools, it's fantasy. Why, I ask myself. Why do these people fail to understand the American Indian? Well, being uneducated is one of the reasons. Many Indians want the mainstream institutions to educate our people. Well, I think they, the white-skinned people, should attend school at an American Indian college and become educated. And we, as American Indian, need to divest in institutions that fail to teach our history. And by divest, I don't only mean money. We should question their credibility to educate our people. Rob, powerful statement, bro.
Thanks. Yeah, it's about education. I mean, just consider the National Museum of the American Indian being in Washington, D.C., and a lot of people's, mostly, I guess, the Caucasians and people in government didn't want us to have a Holocaust museum there. They want no part of the remembrance of what has happened in the history of trying to exterminate my people from this land and say, well, there was unoccupied in this area, or you guys were fighting amongst each other and you guys would have done this anyway. But they don't even understand our concepts of, in their words, war, but our concepts that we fought amongst each other in the form of counting coup. Which it was more honorable just to run up to somebody and then touch them. Can you imagine that? Touch them and raise the way and say, yeah, I got close enough to you to touch you and raise the way. And it wasn't even about killing them and controlling, you know. That was a vice. And then this other way is a virtuous. So we were virtuous even in war on the plains. And my Dakota people, when we fought each other, we would pray for the enemy, that our enemy would be at their best. That way, when we defeated them in battle, we wouldn't have to put our head down in shame that we defeated an unprepared, inferior enemy. We weren't about catching people off guard. And in all the wars that they say they had against us, the battles that they gave medals of honor for, they were actually massacres. They massacred women and children, and they gave away medals of honor, such as the Wounded Knee and other places. And that's a disgrace. That's a disgrace. That's why Redskins is a disgrace. Whether white-skinned people are trying to respect my people, I'm a many bloods. I'm Gros Ventre, Assiniboines, Douglas, Pend Oreille, Dakota. I'm adopted Blackfeet and Lakota. So they don't respect us. The only way they could respect us is to learn about us. And most schools, and it should be, in my opinion, all schools should have Native American history intact. Until that time, they shouldn't say they're trying to respect us.
Well, let me ask you this. We talked briefly last night about this whole thing about these teams with these mascots and names. You know, what is your feeling on it? I know, as I mentioned in my opening statement, change the name, yes, but there's a lot behind that. It's the racism that we have to deal with. What's your feelings on that?
The Redskins is definitely a racist name because of the Holocaust that was caused against us, in particular. And I'm calling you from Seattle, Washington, but you said California. California they actually had something similar to what you described before I came on. They had $10 million allocated to give to Indian scalps, to dead Indians. So you bring in $10 million. This is like raising money, like people in the plains raise money for killing coyotes. So they get $1,000 every time they kill an Indian. You know, for the scalps, for the red skin scalp, like you described. So that's, you know, they profess to be, you know, freedom. They respect to have, you know, they profess to have respect for peoples, but you know, they forget about their disrespect for that they had for my people. So what I was saying was like the word Indians, like braves and warriors. Some of those names are used on our reservations. So I don't just jump with 2 feet into this because I know the kind of concepts we've had, and they can't say, "Oh, well, you guys do it," because they do things in a different concept. Even when you go to games, they'll be throwing stuff at some of the football players. They'll be degrading their names, you know. And when we had names like Talks Different and Long Knife and Gray Eagle, and you know, we had names that respected animals. Red Cloud, you know, we had Crazy Horse, we had beautiful names, and you know, they don't even understand how beautiful our culture was. You know, my name is Robert Upham. It's a name. Upham's the last name was given to after a massacre in the Blackfeet Nation in western Montana, the Baker Massacre, and it was this soldier, last name Upham, that adopted these 2 kids. One was a heavy runner, and there was another family. I can't remember the name, but those are descendants of the Uphams. And that's based on that. My name is based on that, Upham. And I would change my name, but then I lived my whole life with that name, the legacy of that name. So I just claim it because, you know, out of default, really. But the thing about, so if my grandkids were going to trace my history, they would know that I was in the Army. They would know that I was sent overseas to protect, you know, West Germany against the invasion of Russia, you know. Here I am going over there protecting what they say the Germans did to Germany, you know, genocide against the Jews, and yet they want to erase the history of the genocide that happened to us here. So all I'm saying is that in some of these names, like for instance in Pine Ridge, South Dakota, their nickname is the Pine Ridge Thorpes, named after Jim Thorpe. And Jim Thorpe, you know, this needs to be said, and it's hardly ever talked about, even on TV, on Native American Month. This month, Jim Thorpe was one of the founders of the National Football League. The Carlisle Indians were one of the founders of the passing offense.
Yes.
You know, we have things we put into this system that they just erase it all. You know, I love Jim Brown. Jim Brown, one of the best football players ever. He went to school with Oren Lyons. Oren Lyons is one of our major advocates for the Indian cause. He's from the Iroquois Nation. He's one of the faith keepers, and they played lacrosse together at Syracuse. And the thing about some of our history, they don't really even describe our relationship with the black population. Even the description of a story Oren told me about his time playing ball and knowing Jim Brown, because you know it was rare to have people of color in the 1950s in these major institutions. So they became friends. They played lacrosse on the same team. Jim Brown came to this time. Oren shared with me that he was thinking of quitting, and I was thinking, quitting the lacrosse team? He goes, no, quitting school. So here's this Indian, Iroquois, Onondaga, encouraging this black gentleman, and a strong black gentleman, to stay in and keep this up. You see what I'm saying? But those kind of stories are never shared.
Well, you know,
they're different pockets.
Yeah, even on your reservation, you were telling me about this black man that was a part of your reservation.
Oh yeah.
Tell me about it.
In Harlem, Montana, there was a black man that lived with us, and he went to basic training with these Gros Ventres and the Assiniboines, and it was in World War II. And when it came time for them to go out of basic and go to battle, they wanted to divide the black man from our Indian people, my relatives. And my relative says, no, he's coming with us. And he said, no, I want to go with them. They didn't want to be divided, and they fought. They weren't going to go unless this black man went with them. So we don't hear none of that history. We hear the history of the Buffalo Soldiers came to work for the white man to try to exterminate us. And so how do you think we get disrespected? Like, you know, this Redskin name is like the N-word. But the other words, like the Thorpes, we're respecting that gentleman as a founder of the football. And I want to hear them. This is Native American month, November. I want to hear this on the channels. You won't hear it. You won't hear the Redskins talking about how an Indian helped found the NFL.
No, they won't mention that.
The NFL. They won't mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. Jim Thorpe was a Oklahoma Cherokee.
No, Jim Thorpe was Sac and Fox.
Yeah, Sac and Fox. Sorry. Let me ask you this. You know, we talk so much about what we have to celebrate. What would you think would be the fitting thing or things for us to celebrate this month as Native American Indian people that we would want our brothers and sisters, our black, white, and yellow brothers and sisters to learn from this whole experience?
Celebrate how nice my people were. Celebrate some of the concepts that we've given to this. Like I just mentioned one, and that's a simple one because we're talking about football. What's everybody do on Thanksgiving? They tune in and watch a football game, right?
Right.
So sometimes we watch the Redskins, we'll watch the Cowboys, and they always show Detroit Lions. So there was an Indian boy from Montana that played played in the Detroit Lions Miami Dolphins game one Thanksgiving. Do you think they even mentioned there was an Indian playing on the field? We're so invisible, we're so silent that they just go ahead and do what they want to, like this Washington Redskins thing.
You know what? And they didn't mention that 4 or 5 years ago at a Super Bowl, there's a Native brother by the name of Vincent Black Hawk Ahmad, who's a film producer. He actually produced the first commercial by a Native American. Did they bother to mention that? No. They were just more interested in selling the product. And a lot of times we do get overlooked. I was talking to a friend of mine, actually my son-in-law, before we got here, and he says, wouldn't it be strange if we were invited, which I know wouldn't happen anyway, but to invite it to Dan Snyder's house, who is the owner of the Washington Redskins, for Thanksgiving dinner, and we're sitting there, and we're watching the football game, and the team is called the Washington Whiteskins. And the comments would be floating around, those Whiteskins can't even catch the ball. Look at them fumbling. They can't get across the goal line. You know, how ironic would that be? Huh, Robert?
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
But then the thing about it really wouldn't have the same attachment because we never institutionalized the name Whiteskin as a form of genocide. The word Redskin has been institutionalized as a form of extermination of our people.
Absolutely.
That's why that needs to go. But as far as the Indian name go, I want to share this because it needs to be, I think, and you won't, I'm not, that's why I'm saying I don't talk for any other Indian, just me.
Mm-hmm.
So I call myself Harlem Indian because I'm such a mixture of tribes. I can't say I voice for any one of those tribes or speak for them. But as far as my concepts, I think there needs to be a win-win situation with the mascot issues in high schools and colleges. And it has been done in certain places, like in Spokane Indians, they have a minor league team, and they asked the Spokane tribe to agree to let them use that name. The Seminole, the Florida State Seminoles, they asked for permission from the Seminoles in Florida. So as long as they do it in a respectful way and they honor these traditions, I'll tell you how I learned about the name the Seminoles. I was at this restaurant, and I was somehow it was the topic of me being Indian came up with a black man, and he's from Louisiana, and he went to school in Florida State. And he asked me, this black man, outside of the classroom, mind you, I never learned this in the classroom. I learned this from a black man. So he said this. He says, I went to school in Florida. We call it Seminoles. And do you know why they're called the Seminoles? And I was too prideful, but I still listened to it. So I said, well, no, I can't be so busy learning about other tribes. I don't even know enough about the Gros Ventres and Assiniboines of my own. I'm trying to recover that information. It was my excuse for not knowing, And he said, well, you mind if I tell you? Because I went to school there. He went to school in Florida State with the Seminoles. And he said, well, at that time when he was going to school there, they made sure everyone knew who Osceola was.
Mm-hmm.
And Osceola was the Seminole leader that refused to leave Florida State. And he said they used that as a foundation that we never give up. I love that story.
Absolutely.
I love that story. That's a story of resilience. That's a story of revolutionary minds and feelings and giving your life for it. And Osceola did end up giving his life. They tricked him into coming forward and to sign the treaty, and then they cut his head off, and then they set it as an example. But do you think those Seminoles moved? No, they're still in Florida.
Absolutely. Well, Robert, I want to thank you for being on with us today. And I'm going to be talking to you in the next couple of days because I would like to have you back on Thanksgiving morning. So what do you think about that?
That sounds good. I'll help out.
Okay. Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was my guest for this portion of the Night Wolf Show, Rob Upham, from all the way out there in Washington State. I have an important announcement to read to you, and then we're going to go into a little bit of music and come back and talk about a new book. A press conference will be held in Prince George's County on Monday, November 18th at 11 a.m., right across from the old Landover Mall Shopping Center, sponsored by a coalition of Prince George's County leaders and organizations and other local supporters. An announcement will be made by several people, including Hakeem Muhammad, who is the president and co-founder of the Prince George's County Leaders and Organizations, of course by yours truly, J. Winter Nightwolf, and Matthew Fogg, first vice president of BIG, Blacks in Government, and others. The press conference will be addressing the issue of changing the name of the Washington football team. For further information, call Hakeem Muhammad at 410-920-1239 or 301-345-1788. That's again, Hakeem Muhammad, 410-920-1239 or 301-345-1788.